is something so unique, something so special, so noble in terms of what a love story should be. So I welcome you, sir.
Well, thank you, Peter.
Everything you're doing is so perfect, except for this fake accent that you insist on pushing on
This
people.
leprechaun accent?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
really, I don't know where it
I
came
don't know, I've been committing to it for the last 10 years now.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like I can't let up now.
Well-
You know, I'm waiting for you to do it too.
By
The
the
whole
end of
reason
the
why
end-
I'm doing this Irish
I'm
accent
going
is so
to do
you'll
it
follow
by the end.
suit.
I'm going to, you know,
Okay.
but it's
What's up?
not good.
Tell me what's up with the popcorn?
What's up with it? It's fake.
It's fake.
It's fake.
He
yes.
told me that before we started.
I did it. It's fake, but
I'm devastated.
no, you're not.
I am
you
devastated.
don't.
Popcorn is my favourite thing to enjoy
Really.
at the cinema or anywhere.
Or anywhere. So
It's my voice a little
You
bit.
can take this with you when you leave.
It's fake, I don't want
No,
to.
you could
I don't want
actually take a
fake popcorn.
blowtorch and you know get it back to
Toast
its
it.
original
Toast
form.
the popcorn.
I accuse you of a fake accent because you're genuinely born in the Bronx.
I was
So
born in
what
the
you're
Bronx.
doing a movie called Brooklyn for, I don't really know.
I know. I'm turning on my own people,
You,
really.
you
aren't
really
I?
have.
Jennifer Lopez is going to be really upset with me next time
It's
I talk to
Saoirse
her.
from the block.
Saoirse from the block.
That's what it
Myself
really is.
and I. This is how Bronx I am. I only found out like very, very recently that hip hop originated in the Bronx. I didn't know that.
Well, when
But I
did you
do
leave?
now.
When you were? It was 6 years ago. Lovely Bones.
I know.
I asked you whether you were Team Edward or Team Jacob for
Yeah.
for Twilight. And
I
you were
mean,
cautious.
I've been thinking about it ever since.
I bet you have, because in this movie.
Did I make the right choice?
Well, yes. You've got two teams here
Yeah.
again.
Team Jim or Team Tony?
Yes.
Yeah.
Donald Gleason one, Emery Cohen
Yeah.
in the other one.
Yeah.
What do you choose? Is that
Well-
your life too, or there's just too many men? Yeah.
There's
It's
so
never
many.
Just too
There's like
many.
there's too many options.
Too many.
So I don't pick any of them. I'm good.
You're living in New York soon
Yeah.
because
in
you're
January.
doing The Crucible on Broadway,
Yeah.
where you just play a devilish. She's a
Terrified.
witch.
Yeah.
Yes, just really.
Well, I'm pointing the finger at everyone else. Actually,
Okay. You are. That's what.
I point the finger.
She's a witch,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it's great because in a way she kind of reminds me of Brian E. Tallis, who
From
the
Atonement.
character from Atonement, but she's worse because she's older and she knows what she's doing, and I like that she's bitter, and I like that there's obviously reasons for it, but there is a malice there, you know, which I'm really looking forward to playing.
What do people see in you that would happen? They would
horrible-
take you as a
horrible
child
person.
and come in and say, we want her for atonement so she could destroy lives.
Yeah.
And now you're doing it again
now I'm doing
in
it
the
again.
Salem witch
I'm
trial.
in my element.
And yet here with Ayla, she's just lovely.
Yeah.
So that must
She
have been a
is.
real struggle for you to play.
It was, because I'm
Yes.
such a terrible person.
And
as
here's
you
this-
know.
I do. What about, how do you deal with the Oscar talk? You know, okay, you're 13 when you go to what is your memory of sitting there amidst all of Hollywood?
My memory is being absolutely starving halfway through.
Oh, so it's all about food.
It's all about food. It
Like
is
the
all
popcorn,
about.
how you wanted
No,
that.
I am
Yeah.
actually one of those people, honestly, where I'll wake up in the morning and the first thing I think about is food. Like dinner, not breakfast.
Dinner.
What are we having for dinner?
Yeah.
And so we were at the Oscars and my mum and dad were there and my agents and all that. And I didn't know anyone. See, that's the thing. It's very different, I think, when you're completely new to it. You don't know anyone. It's huge. And that was the first ever award show I was at. And my main memory is Jon Stewart walking around the auditorium with like a big bucket of licorice, handing out licorice to everyone because everyone was starving. We were you know, it's like it's over 3 hours long.
So he was handing out licorice for
Yeah.
people. That's so good. That is like a great man. So none of this,
He's a
the
great man.
13-year-old you was not saying, Tilda Swinton, what are you kidding
She
me?
took my awards.
What?
No.
What? No.
No,
No
I knew-
bitterness.
No, of course not.
But I assume you
no.
will enter this year's Oscar race.
With bitterness.
With bitterness.
I'll be so bitter.
And basically with all your martial arts skills to do
yeah,
that.
with the nunchakus on the red carpet.
That's right.
No, it's...
Don't you dare, Kate Blanchett.
Don't you dare.
Don't you come near me.
Blanchett, get out of here. You've got like 6 already.
Yeah, you
You're the
took
best
care of her and
actress in the
Hannah
world.
anyway, you know. Yeah, that was it. She knows.
Ability.
So it's lucky that this show always ends in song.
It is lucky.
It is lucky, you know.
Thank
And so
God.
you could then express everything.
Let me just warm
that
up my
you're
vocal
oh,
cords.
you have to warm up?
Yeah.
Is it going to be rap? Is it going to be Kanye? I just thought, you know, it might...
Should it be
Should
Kanye?
it be? I don't... It could be. I want this to
Okay.
come, just the natural thing to come from you.
Oh, well, we've been singing a lot of We Don't Have to Take Our Clothes Off.
Perfect.
We don't have to take our clothes off to have a good time. Oh no. We can dance and party all night, and drink some cherry wine. Uh-huh. Na 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 na. You're supposed to be singing it with me.
I know, I was too on. I was too
na.
on. Why not a musical of The Crucible?
Broadway. Yeah,
It's coming
it was
your
her.
way.
It was her.
It was it.
That's what I was thinking, actually, that it should be like a real like ham of a musical, that we like the cheesiest witch hunt musical you've ever seen.
And you could do that. That's coming up. You have
I
a
could try.
full careers coming up. It's perfect.
Peter,
So-
Peter,
sure.
Peter. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll
that was
stop.
that. I think that wouldn't work.
What, Peter
Peter,
song?
Peter, Peter.
Peter,
It just
Peter,
doesn't
Peter.
work. It's
Peter
just,
Piper.
It's not. I
Okay.
wish I could sing something.
We could
in
make
Gaelic,
up a rap about popcorn.
but I can't. No. Next time, real popcorn for you.
If there's
if you
yeah.
come back with the Oscar, this definitely real popcorn for you. It's a deal.
Is that actually a deal?
It's a deal.
If I ever win an Oscar,
Yes. You have
In
to
my
come back
life.
with it. We're going to put it here.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's a
Whenever it
huge-
happens.
I never felt the pressure before, and all of a
But
sudden,
now it's
all of a sudden now
pressure.
I actually
It's
want to win an
pressure.
Oscar, so
Well,
so
right
I
now,
can have
I'm
some
saying
popcorn.
so you could go about your
It's
life
my only
now.
motivation.
That
We're
life.
going to shake on it, though.
We're going to shake on it. That is a deal.
Remember this
a
happened,
deal.
world.
Remember, people, that's it.
America.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Saoirse.
Peter.
Saoirse. Anything.
Whatever you
Saoirse,
want.
Saoirse,
You can
I
call me
get
Peter
anything ever.
Travers.
Let's just keep doing
Where's
it.
the popcorn?
My name is Dave Karger. I am the host of a show called Fandango Frontrunners. I was fortunate enough to have tonight's guest as a guest on my show, which you can watch on the Fandango website and learn even more about her. And it is my pleasure to introduce the magical, the radiant Saoirse Ronan.
Thanks, guys.
So in other words, you agree with me, which I like. You thinking about doing this, you had done some TV work. Were you always interested in pursuing this career, or did it happen in that small period of time leading up to those 2 TV shows and then this film?
It kind of just happened, to be honest. I mean, I can't really... Thanks for coming, by the way, tonight. Thank you. You're going to have to listen to me talk now for the next hour. Lucky you. Yeah, it was one of those things that sort of, it was never necessarily something that I had set out to do, you know. Like when I was a kid, I don't know about you guys, maybe some of the younger people in here, but I had like plastic food for toys when I was about 2 or 3. And so I used to go into the living room and take everyone's order, and then I'd go back to the kitchen and see if the chef can make that for you. And so when I was a kid, I wanted to be a waitress. I'm an actress that wanted to be a waitress instead of the other way around. So yeah, and just kind of from the first day on a film set, I loved it, and it just felt really natural and right to kind of be there. And it wasn't really until I did I Could Never Be Your Woman, and then, you know, the third film that I did, which was Atonement, where I guess, thank you. It was such a stretch for me, and I was playing somebody that was very different to myself, and that's when I kind of knew, oh, this is acting and this is something that I love. So
I Could Never Be Your Woman didn't get a full theatrical release here, but if you seek it out, you'll see Saoirse as an 11-year-old playing an American girl. And I remember Paul Rudd is a friend of mine, as you know, and I actually texted him today, and I said, do you have any remembrances of Saoirse? And he texted me back, and I want to read what he said, because it's so sweet. Oh, no. He said, I remember being pretty knocked out at how well she did an American accent, which is so true. Whenever we weren't shooting, she was talking in her normal Irish accent, and she was such a great kid. We talked about Ireland because I love it there. And I also talked to her dad, Paul, a lot. He acted as well. Oh, see, he knows.
I said that. You guys knew that already.
But I remember telling him what a great daughter he'd raised. She also told me no one pronounced her name correctly.
That's still true.
The last thing he said was she made such a fuss over Jack. Jack is Paul's son, who's now 11, which is the age you were when you did this. He was a baby, and she was so great with him in that way kids can be. Every day she'd ask, how's Jack? So he says hi and sends his
Hi,
best.
Paul.
So we have to, of course, talk.
I mean, with I Could Never Be Your Woman, I'm sure most people haven't seen it in here, but like I was, you know, a kid who grew up in the countryside, and suddenly I was playing this girl from LA who was suddenly talking about, you know, can I curse and stuff, blowjobs and sex and my first period and sorry, but all these different things that I didn't know anything about. And I was kind of, you know, I had no idea what these things were, and it was sort of the same. I probably shouldn't have said that word during a SAG discussion, sorry. It was in the script, but anyway, it was the same thing with atonement. You know, the subject matter was something that I wasn't kind of familiar with, obviously, and I was an innocent kid, and so it was kind of kept that way for me, which I think was probably a good thing, you know, considering the perspective of Bryony's character. She's not aware of what she's just witnessed, and it's a mixture of sort of confusion and fear and imagination, I think, that sort of manifests into this lie that essentially ruins everyone's life. And so I felt so incredibly lucky to just go onto a set every day and hang out with these amazing people and have fun, and that's what I wanted to do. And I remember when that was kind of the only reason why I wanted to do it. And I remember when we had the Venice Film Festival premiere for Atonement, you know, it was a big deal, and it was a big deal for Joe and all of us really. And Joe was terrified, like he was so nervous about what everyone was going to think. And I remember he had to do the intro beforehand, and we all had to go out on stage with him. And that was the first time I had even been on a red carpet. You know, I didn't have dresses to wear or anything. I was going to, like, you know, Primark, which is back in Ireland and the UK, to get a dress, which is like a cheap shop. We didn't have a clue what this world was all about at all. And I remember him being terrified, and I looked at him, I was like, what's wrong with you? This is great. We've got our film at the Venice Film Festival. What are you nervous about? And he just looked at me, and I remember his face. He was like in complete awe that this kid was sort of like, it's grand, it'll be fine. They'll love it. Of course they're going to like it. And we were very lucky that, you know, I think for the most part they did. But that kind of went over my head. And even when all the Oscar stuff happened and the Globes and we got BAFTA nominations and all of this wonderful recognition, this wasn't a world that I was a part of. I mean, I watched the Oscars every year on the telly, but to me it was like a show on the telly, you know. And at that stage I was in New Zealand. I was working on Lovely Bones, and, you know, I was just about to get murdered by Stanley Tucci. Literally. I went to the Oscars. We stayed there for 2 days. It was mental. We were jet lagged the whole time, starving when you went in there, because, you know, it's like three and a half hours long or something like that. And then we had to get back on a plane, you know, the next morning. And the first scene that was up when I got back to New Zealand was in a hole with Stanley Tucci, where he murdered me.
Do you remember who won your category?
Tilda Swinton.
Who then you were years later in Grand Budapest Hotel
Yeah.
with. Did you have a little chat about that? Did she apologize?
I sent her loads of letters, but she just never replied. No, I don't think so. I mean, listen, I knew I wasn't gonna win or anything. When I look back now, I think, Jesus, it was amazing to be there, and, you know, to be involved in something like that when you were 13 was incredible. The great thing about Ryan is that he takes his work very seriously. You know, he's a serious actor and was a serious director, and has so much fun with everyone on set, like he did on Lost River. But, you know, he's so talented. He's so brilliant at what he does. And I think even as a 13, 14-year-old, I could see that, you know. He had his dog with him, George, who he had on Lost River as well. George has, as Ryan puts it, back cheese. which is like it's like these little bumps on your back. They're like pimples, and Ryan has to pop them all the time. It's gross. Yeah. You glad you came to this conversation?
Enjoy your dinner tonight, everybody.
I've ran in loads of films though. I feel like that's all I do is run. I think Brooklyn is the first film I've done where I get to just kind of saunter around. Everything else I'm running from someone, or I'm killing someone, or I'm in the woods, or I'm on a lake, or... no, it excited me. I mean, I knew it was going to be a big undertaking, you know, but my dad had done a lot of martial arts before he got into acting. He was actually a black belt in different sorts of martial arts back in Ireland. All-Ireland champion he was. Yeah, very impressive. Yeah. So yeah, that was something that he did from the age of 10. And like for me to go into that when I was 15, and the only thing is I didn't want muscles. I didn't want to go into the gym. I didn't want like horrible muscular arms at 15, which I kind of started to get. And you know when you're a girl, I didn't want muscular arms, but I really want them now. But
if you go back and watch Hannah, there's a scene where you're in like this interrogation room and this agent comes in. She's got a thick southern drawl and she's talking to you, and it's Michelle Dockery. It's Lady Mary. It's so cool.
Downton Abbey.
And you slice her throat.
Cracked Lady Mary's neck in two. I killed Lady Mary. Because she was lying to me.
There you go.
Lady Mary's a liar.
Sprawling cast of Grand Budapest Hotel. Who's the one person that you got to work with who was just the most unpredictable, who really kept you on your toes?
Well, I only really got to work with
Tony.
Only Rafe and Tony, and they were both incredibly professional. But I have worked with Bill Murray before. And even though I didn't get to work with Bill properly on this, I didn't have any scenes with Bill. I had worked with him on another film in Belfast years ago, and everything Bill does is unpredictable. He had this fat suit on in the film that we worked on together.
What was it called?
It was called City of Ember. Okay. I did it just before Lovely Bones.
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
Of course it matters.
But he had this fat suit on, you know, and he'd have a big suit. He was playing this mayor, this like greedy mayor in this post-apocalyptic town, and he'd, you know, go into his dungeon and he'd eat all the sardines and he wouldn't share any of the food with anyone, all the starving locals in the town and everything. And he would go up to extras in Belfast who were kind of, it was one of the first films to be shot there. It was right before Game of Thrones and everything. And everyone was just bloody delighted like that. The likes of Bill Murray and Tim Robbins and all these people were in the town. And he'd go up to people, he'd have the big fat suit on, and he'd just go up to them and he'd just like bump them with his belly. Or he'd sit on their lap or something. He'd go up to women, you know, other women in the cast or extras, and he'd just kind of sit down on their lap. Wouldn't like acknowledge them at all. And he did it to Wes. He did it to Wes at I probably shouldn't be telling you all this, but I think everyone knows it though. He did it to Wes at our Berlin premiere. He just went up to him. He got like bored or something, and he just stood up, went over to Wes, and just sat down on his lap.
Okay.
And Wes didn't mind, like didn't bat an eyelid. So Bill is very unpredictable, but
So you've already shot and wrapped The Seagull, right? With Elizabeth Moss and Annette Bening and you. What can we all be excited about with that?
Annette Bening and Lizzie Moss and Brian Dennehy and Corey Stoll and, you know, all these different people. They're great. Yeah, just a brilliant, brilliant cast, you know. We shot it in 3 weeks. We shot it really quickly. And it's a costume drama. So to shoot a costume drama in that amount of time, there was a lot of Steadicam used. An awful lot of Steadicam shots were used. And we shot it in upstate New York in Monroe in this beautiful Russian manor. And actually, the day I got to Monroe, do you remember those 2 convicts went missing last year? Yeah, that was in Monroe. They were found in Monroe. There was an Amber Alert warning that came up on my phone when I first got to the cottage that I stayed in on my own in the woods. Oh. So that was my first introduction to the Seagull and Monroe. But it was brilliant. It was great. Once we got past, you know, the murderers and all that kind of stuff, it was it was grand. It was lots of fun.
And then what are the 3 words that come to mind when I remind you that you are about 7 weeks away from making your Broadway debut in The Crucible?
I'm so nervous.
That's 3 words.
3 words. I'm so nervous.
How are you going to get over those nerves?
I don't know. I'll just have to get on with it, won't I? Never done it before. Never done a play, so I'm terrified. And to go into The Crucible as well for your first job on stage is probably the dumbest idea for me to do, something like that. But no, it's not. It's amazing. Ivo van Hove, the Belgian director, is doing it, and it's Ben Wishaw's playing Proctor, who's brilliant. And Kieran Hines and Sophie Okonedo and all these brilliant people. So just have to make sure I know my lines, basically. Just learning my lines
How
now.
are you doing over them right now?
I'm all right. I know my first line is Uncle.
Nice.
Susanna Walcott's here from Dr. Griggs.
Good.
Come in, Susanna. And so on and so forth.
Here's another great...
You have the accent down for the role. What was the most
To
challenging?
work on it though.
Did you?
Oh, it was tough, yeah. It was tough. It is actually a different
Is it
accent.
slightly
though.
different? Yeah, I can
when
hear a
we
little
were when we were at TIFF in September, myself and John and Donal, not Domhnall, Donal, we were doing an interview, and this guy that was interviewing, this poor bloke, didn't know who he was dealing with, but he was like, so that's great that you got to do your own accents. You and Donal got to do your own accents for the film. And we both have pretty strong Dublin accents. And we turned to him and we were like, we're putting on an accent. We're doing a completely different accent. We worked really hard on that accent. Yeah. But it is actually, it's a country accent. So it's sort of, everything's a little bit lighter and, more, it probably sounds nicer than my accent. So I did actually have to work on it a little bit. When you're in your hometown, especially when you're in the place where you grew up, even more so than Dublin for me, there were extras in this film, in the dance hall especially, that I had gone to basketball practice with when I was 9. Do you know what I mean? And they'd come up to me and they'd be like, Saoirse, do you remember me? Do you remember we played that match in Kilkenny when we were 9 and it was half time and so yeah. That did happen, something like that. And so I was meeting people like that every single day, and it was really news team. The national news team actually came down and broadcasted the whole thing, and so there was a lot of coverage for us, and I think we just really felt like we were representing Ireland and didn't want to feck it up.
Well, I don't think you did.
People.
And you got an Oscar nomination for it too at a very young age. Well, that must have been. What was that experience like for you? I mean, was it overwhelming? Was it just incredibly exciting or scary?
It was exciting. It was great, but I think it went over my head a little bit. It was. I remember getting the nomination, and I was like, "That's lovely, isn't it?" That's nice. It's nice of them. My dad was losing it, but Mum and I were like, "That's great." No, that's great. No, I was very, very excited, and I was in New Zealand at the time. Surreal doing all of this for Brooklyn. At least I know a few more people this time, but we didn't know anyone. Mum got to meet John Travolta, which she was very excited about. Very excited. She went to see Saturday Night Fever in the cinema 27 times.
Wow.
So she was very excited about that. And so that was kind of the highlight was meeting Tony.
Yeah.
Tony/Danny. And then we went.
Actors, are there people that you've grown up looking up to that you now get to rub elbows with at fancy Hollywood events?
I think as I get older, it's there are certain actresses that have taken on the kind of role of someone who I really look up to more so, and that would be obviously Meryl, just because she's done everything. But Kate, she's just...
Blanchett or Winslet? Could
Kate,
be either one.
Well, both, but both of them, they're both brilliant. But
Yeah.
Kate Blanchett, I just really think she's the bee's knees. I think she's really, really great. And, I watched her in Carol, obviously, most recently, and I just couldn't stop thinking about her performance for days. So.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten from another actor that you can pass along to the actors here in the
Jesus.
audience?
Oh God, I wouldn't give you any advice. Well, one thing that a wise mother said to me years ago, I talk about my mum a lot, don't I? She's nice, that's why. I had just gotten off atonement. She's nice most of the time. I had gotten off atonement and I was very, very sad and really missed that whole experience. It was kind of like being at a summer camp. It was perfect. It was like the perfect experience. And I went on to another film and, Atonement was only the third film I had ever done. So it was still all very new. And you know what it's like, you get off a film or a play and you're like, I'll never have an experience like this again. And I'll never see these people again. And of course you bump into them wherever you go and oh God. But so I went on to this other thing and I didn't really have a lot of dialogue. I was in the whole thing and was kind of, I was Catherine Zeta-Jones's daughter. Look nothing like Catherine at all. But anyway, I didn't really have that much to say and didn't really know how to use that yet or could appreciate the value of not saying anything. And I said it to Mum one day and I was so worried. I don't know how to do this and I don't know how to bring this character to life. And she said, you don't have to say anything in order to tell a story. You can say so much with your face. And I think that subconsciously that stayed with me since then because I'm really drawn towards not only characters but just within scenes, even cutting out dialogue. And in film, I think in theatre it's different obviously, but with film the camera's right there, it won't miss anything, and to take advantage of that is great. So.
But I want to ask you, you're about to make your Broadway debut in The Crucible.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about it? I mean, what's your preparation like for taking on a role like that?
Just keep learning your lines. Don't fluff your lines up. I'm really scared. I am very scared, but I suppose that's a good thing. We start in the next week and a half. And actually, before I left for New York, or before I went, I had to go to LA first to do press for Brooklyn and everything, but before I made the move over here, one of my oldest friends, who was never really into seeing any of my films and has seen Brooklyn twice, which I think says a lot about the film, because Amy will fall asleep during the films or will say, yeah, it was all right, but Robert Pattinson wasn't in it, so or Ryan Gosling, so she wasn't really as much of a fan of the others. But anyway, she came up what I'm saying is she's not one of us, and she's not a film person or anything. And she came up to me before I left and she said, so are you really nervous about fluffing your lines in front of everyone when you're on stage, because it'll be live and everyone will see you mess up? And I looked at her and I was like, no, Amy, of course I haven't thought about that at all over the last 2 years since I've been attached to it. It's all I've thought about every single night. But no, it's exciting. It's actually an actress who I know from years ago said to me a while ago, you'll use muscles that you didn't even know you had. So I'm excited about using those muscles, I guess.
Well, I think I speak for everyone here when I say break a leg.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening.